Most people waste 30 years learning lessons that could change their life in 30 days. I spent 3 decades figuring out what actually matters, and what I'm about to share will completely rewire how you see the world. The truth is, everything you think you know about success and happiness is probably wrong. Look, I'm not here to sell you some magic solution or pretend life is easy. What I've learned over the last 30 years came from pain, failure, and countless mistakes. But here's the thing. There are 11 specific lessons that completely transformed how I think, act, and respond to everything life throws at me. And the crazy part? Once you understand these, you can't unsee them. They become part of who you are. So if you're ready to stop living on autopilot and actually take control of your mind, stay with me because this might be the most important 15 minutes you spend today. Here's what nobody tells you when you're young. You go through life thinking that once you get the right job, the right relationship, the right amount of money, then you'll finally be happy. Then you'll finally feel peaceful. Then everything will make sense. But years go by and you realize something disturbing. You got some of those things, maybe even all of them, and you still feel empty. You still feel anxious. You still feel like something's missing. I spent my 20s chasing external validation. I thought if people liked me, if I impressed others, if I could just prove myself, then I'd feel complete. My 30s were about accumulating things, achievements, status. And you know what I discovered? None of it filled the void. None of it gave me the peace I was desperately searching for. The real problem isn't out there in the world. It's in here, in our minds. We've been trained to look everywhere else for answers when the only place we actually have control is within ourselves. And that realization, as simple as it sounds, took me 30 years to truly understand. Let me walk you through these 11 lessons, and I'm going to be brutally honest about each one because sugarcoating them would be doing you a disservice. Lesson 1. You don't control what happens, only how you respond. This is the foundation of everything else. For years I tried to control outcomes. I tried to control what people thought of me. I tried to control circumstances that were completely beyond my power. And every single time I ended up frustrated, angry, and disappointed. The breakthrough came when I realized that life is basically divided into 2 categories. Things you can control and things you can't. And here's the shocking part. You can control way less than you think. You can't control the weather. You can't control traffic. You can't control what your boss says to you or how your parents treat you or whether someone cuts you off in traffic. But you can control one thing completely, your response, your interpretation, your next action. When you stop wasting energy on things outside your control and pour everything into your responses, your entire life changes. Suddenly, you're not a victim of circumstances anymore. You're someone who chooses their attitude regardless of what's happening around them. Let me tell you about a specific moment when this really hit me. I was stuck in traffic on my way to an important meeting. I'm talking bumper to bumper, not moving an inch, and I could feel my blood pressure rising. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I was cursing under my breath, checking the time every 30 seconds, getting more and more worked up. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. What exactly was I accomplishing? Was my anger making the traffic move faster? Was my stress somehow teleporting me to my destination? No, I was just sitting there making myself miserable over something I had absolutely zero control over. That's when something shifted in my brain. I took a deep breath and asked myself a simple question. What can I actually control right now? I couldn't control the traffic. I couldn't control that there was an accident up ahead. I couldn't control that I was going to be late. But I could control how I spent this time. I could control my breathing. I could control whether I chose to be angry or chose to be calm. I could control whether I called ahead to explain I'd be late. I could control whether I used this time to listen to something useful or just sit there fuming. That small shift in perspective changed everything about that moment. And here's what I discovered over time. This principle applies to literally everything in life. Someone says something hurtful to you at work. You can't control what they said. It already happened. Those words are out there in the universe now. But you get to control what those words mean to you. You get to control whether you let them ruin your day or whether you recognize that their words say more about them than they do about you. You get to control your response. Maybe you address it directly with them. Maybe you let it go. Maybe you talk to HR. But the point is, you're making an active choice instead of just reacting emotionally. Your parents criticize your life choices. Again, you can't control what they think or what they say. You can't reach into their brains and rewire their opinions. But you can control whether you internalize their criticism or whether you recognize that they're coming from their own fears and limitations. You can control whether you engage in an argument or whether you calmly state your position and move on. You can control how much power you give their words over your emotional state. The weather ruins your outdoor plans. You can't control that it's raining. You can't control that the forecast was wrong, but you can control whether you spend the whole day complaining about it or whether you adapt and find something else to do. You get sick right before a vacation you've been planning for months. You can't control that your body decided to catch a virus at the worst possible time, but you can control whether you spend your recovery time being bitter about it or whether you accept the situation and focus on getting better. Someone rear-ends your car. You can't control that they weren't paying attention. You can't control that your day just got a lot more complicated. But you can control whether you lose your temper or whether you handle it calmly and practically. These might seem like small examples, but they add up. Every single day presents you with dozens of situations where you have a choice. Not a choice about what happens, but a choice about how you respond to what happens. And this is where most people get stuck. They spend so much energy wishing things were different. If only this hadn't happened. If only they had done that. If only the world worked the way I think it should. All of that is wasted energy. It's like trying to push a wall that will never move. You just exhaust yourself. But when you redirect that same energy toward things you actually can influence, suddenly you have power again. You're not helplessly reacting to life. You're actively engaging with it. You're making choices based on your values instead of just being tossed around by circumstances. This doesn't mean you become some robot who never feels emotions. You're still human. You're still going to feel frustrated when things go wrong. You're still going to feel disappointed when you don't get what you wanted. But there's a difference between feeling those emotions and being controlled by them. You can feel frustrated and still choose a productive response. You can feel disappointed and still move forward constructively. The real freedom comes when you stop waiting for circumstances to be perfect before you can be okay. Because circumstances will never be perfect. There will always be something. There will always be challenges and obstacles and things that don't go your way. But when you realize that your peace of mind doesn't depend on everything going right, when you understand that you can be okay regardless of what's happening around you, that's when you become truly powerful. Not powerful in the sense of controlling the world, but powerful in the sense of controlling yourself. And that's the only power that actually matters. Lesson 2. Your thoughts create your reality. This sounds like some new age nonsense, but hear me out. Your external reality doesn't determine your internal state. Your thoughts about your reality do. Two people can experience the exact same event and have completely different reactions. One person loses their job and falls into depression. Another person loses their job and sees it as an opportunity to start something new. The difference? Not the event. The thoughts about the event. I used to think negative thoughts just happened to me, like I had no say in what popped into my head. But here's what changed everything. You can observe your thoughts. You can question them. You can choose which ones to believe and which ones to dismiss. When something bad happens, your mind immediately creates a story about what it means. But that story isn't truth. It's just one possible interpretation. And if you can create a negative story, you can just as easily create a neutral or even positive one. Let me give you a real example from my own life. A few years back, I sent a text to a friend and didn't get a response for 3 days. My immediate thought was that they were mad at me. Then my mind started creating this whole elaborate story. What did I do wrong? Did I say something offensive last time we talked? Are they avoiding me? Do they not want to be friends anymore? I started feeling anxious. I started replaying our last conversation in my head looking for clues. I started feeling hurt that they would just ignore me like this. And here's the thing, none of that was real. It was all just a story my mind created. When they finally responded, you know what they said? "Sorry for the delay. I dropped my phone in water and just got a new one." That's it. Nothing to do with me at all. But I had spent 3 days creating and believing a narrative that caused me genuine emotional pain. That's when it really clicked for me. My thoughts about the situation created my reality, not the situation itself. Think about how often you do this in your own life. Your boss walks past you without saying good morning. Your mind immediately jumps to a conclusion. They're upset with me. I'm probably getting fired. They think I'm doing a bad job. And suddenly you're stressed for the entire day based on absolutely nothing concrete. Maybe your boss was just distracted. Maybe they were late for a meeting. Maybe they didn't even see you. But your thoughts created an entire reality that caused you real stress. Someone posts on social media and doesn't like your comment. Your mind creates a story. They're ignoring me on purpose. They don't value my opinion. They probably think I'm annoying. And now you feel rejected based purely on thoughts, not facts. You make a presentation at work and notice someone on their phone. Your thoughts tell you they're bored, that your presentation is terrible, that you're failing. When in reality they could be taking notes on their phone, or dealing with an emergency, or literally doing anything else. But your thoughts created a reality where you're inadequate. This happens with bigger things too. You're single and your mind tells you that means something is wrong with you, that you're unlovable, that you'll always be alone. Those thoughts create a reality where you feel desperate and anxious, which actually makes it harder to connect with people. You make a mistake at work and your mind tells you you're incompetent, that everyone thinks you're stupid, that you're going to lose your job. Those thoughts create a reality where you're constantly anxious and second-guessing yourself, which actually makes you perform worse. You have a health issue and your mind immediately goes to worst-case scenarios. It's definitely cancer. I'm going to die. My life is over. Those thoughts create a reality of fear and panic before you even know what you're actually dealing with. See the pattern? Your mind is constantly interpreting events and creating narratives, and most of the time those narratives are negative. That's just how our brains evolved. We're wired to look for threats and problems because that kept our ancestors alive. But in modern life, this tendency just makes us miserable. The breakthrough comes when you realize you don't have to believe every thought that pops into your head. You can observe your thoughts like you're watching clouds pass by. Oh, there's a thought that I'm not good enough. There's a thought that something bad is going to happen. There's a thought that this person doesn't like me. You can notice these thoughts without immediately accepting them as truth. And once you create that little bit of space between you and your thoughts, you can start questioning them. Is this thought actually true? What evidence do I have for this? Am I jumping to conclusions? Could there be another explanation? Am I catastrophizing? Am I reading minds? Am I predicting the future based on nothing? Most of the time, when you actually examine your negative thoughts, they fall apart. They're based on assumptions, not facts. They're one possible interpretation out of many. And here's where it gets really interesting. If you can create a negative interpretation, you can just as easily create a neutral or positive one. Someone doesn't text you back. Instead of thinking they're mad at you, you could think they're busy. You could think they didn't see the message. You could think they're dealing with something in their own life. All of those are just as valid as your negative interpretation, probably more valid. You don't get that job you applied for. Instead of thinking you're not good enough, you could think it wasn't the right fit. You could think they already had an internal candidate in mind. You could think a better opportunity is coming. Again, all valid interpretations. Your partner seems distant. Instead of thinking they're losing interest, you could think they're stressed about work. You could think they're tired. You could think they need some space and it has nothing to do with you. Same situation, completely different reality based purely on the thoughts you choose to believe. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is great when it's not. It's about recognizing that your thoughts are not facts, they're interpretations. And you have way more control over them than you realize. You can't stop negative thoughts from appearing. That's not how brains work. But you can choose which thoughts you feed and which ones you let pass by. You can choose to question your automatic negative interpretations. You can choose to look for evidence instead of jumping to conclusions. And when you do this consistently, your entire experience of life changes. Not because your circumstances change, but because your relationship with your thoughts changes, and that changes everything. Lesson 3. Suffering comes from wanting reality to be different than it is. This one hurt to learn. Every single moment of suffering in my life came from arguing with reality. I should have gotten that promotion. They shouldn't have said that to me. The weather shouldn't be like this. My body shouldn't feel this way. Life shouldn't be this hard. All of that is resistance to what is, and resistance creates suffering. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what's happening. It doesn't mean you won't work to change things. It means you stop fighting against reality in your mind. You acknowledge what is before deciding what to do about it. The moment I started practicing acceptance, even in small ways, a massive weight lifted off my shoulders. I stopped exhausting myself fighting battles that couldn't be won. I spent years of my life in a constant state of resistance. Every time something didn't go the way I wanted, I would mentally argue with it. This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. This isn't how things should work. And every single time I did this, I created suffering for myself. Because reality doesn't care about your shoulds. Reality just is. It's raining outside. You can stand there and say it shouldn't be raining, that you planned an outdoor event, that the forecast said it would be sunny, that it's not fair. You can spend hours mentally fighting with the fact that it's raining. But guess what? It's still raining. Your resistance doesn't change the weather. It just makes you miserable while the weather does its thing. That's such a clear example because everyone can see how pointless it is to argue with weather. But we do the exact same thing with everything else in life. And somehow we don't see how pointless it is. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You can spend the next 10 miles thinking about how they shouldn't have done that. How dare they? What kind of person drives like that? They should be more careful. But while you're sitting there stewing in anger, they've already exited the highway and forgotten about it. Your resistance to what happened doesn't change the fact that it happened. It just ruins your mood. You get sick. You can lie in bed thinking about how you shouldn't be sick right now, how you don't have time for this, how your body should be stronger, how this is the worst timing. But you are sick. That's the reality. Your resistance to being sick doesn't make you heal faster. If anything, the stress of resistance probably makes you heal slower. All that mental energy spent fighting against the fact that you're sick is energy that could be spent resting and recovering. Your relationship ends. You can spend months thinking about how it shouldn't have ended, how they should have tried harder, how you should have said something different, how it should have worked out. But it didn't. That's the reality you're living in now. And every moment you spend wishing it was different is a moment you're not accepting what is and moving forward. I'm not saying you shouldn't grieve. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel sad. Feel whatever you need to feel. But there's a difference between feeling sadness and mentally arguing with reality. Sadness is a natural response to loss. Arguing with reality is adding unnecessary suffering on top of natural pain. You didn't get the job you wanted. You can spend weeks thinking about how you should have gotten it, how you were qualified, how the interview went well, how they made the wrong choice. But they didn't hire you. That's what happened. Your mental resistance doesn't change their decision. It just keeps you stuck in bitterness instead of moving on to the next opportunity. Here's what I finally understood after years of this pattern. There's pain in life that's unavoidable. Things will happen that hurt. Things will happen that disappoint you. Things will happen that you don't want. That's just part of being human. But suffering, the prolonged mental anguish, that's optional. Suffering comes from the story you tell yourself about the pain. It comes from the resistance. It comes from the should and shouldn't. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. When you accept what is, you stop adding that extra layer of suffering. You stop fighting battles in your mind that can never be won. You stop wasting energy on wishing things were different. And that energy can now be used for something productive, for adapting, for finding solutions, for moving forward. Acceptance is probably one of the most misunderstood concepts. People think it means giving up. People think it means you're okay with bad things happening. People think it means you become passive and don't try to change anything. That's not what it means at all. Acceptance means you acknowledge reality as it is right now, in this moment. You stop pretending things are different than they are. You stop fighting with what already happened. And from that place of clear-eyed acceptance, you can decide what to do next. Maybe you work to change the situation. Maybe you adapt to it. maybe you leave it. But you're making those decisions from a place of clarity instead of from a place of resistance and suffering. Let me give you another personal example. I used to have chronic back pain. Every morning I would wake up and the first thought in my head was, this shouldn't hurt. I'm too young for this. My back should be fine. This isn't fair. And I would spend the whole day angry at my body, frustrated with the pain, resisting every moment of discomfort. It was exhausting. And the crazy thing is, the resistance made the pain worse. Tension from mental resistance creates physical tension, which creates more pain. It was a cycle. Then one day I tried something different. I woke up with the pain and instead of fighting it, I just acknowledged it. My back hurts right now. That's what's happening. I didn't like it. I still wanted it to go away, but I stopped arguing with the reality that it was there, and something shifted. The pain was still there, but the suffering around the pain decreased dramatically. I could function. I could focus on other things. I could take productive steps to address it without all the emotional baggage of resistance weighing me down. That's the power of acceptance. It doesn't change what's happening, but it completely changes your experience of what's happening. When you stop fighting reality, you stop creating that extra layer of mental and emotional suffering. You still deal with whatever the situation is, but you deal with it more effectively because you're not wasting energy on resistance. This applies to small things and big things. Traffic, weather, other people's behavior, your body, your circumstances, past events. Anytime you catch yourself thinking it should be different, that's your cue. That's the red flag that you're creating suffering for yourself. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can keep fighting with reality and keep suffering, or you can accept what is and redirect your energy towards something useful. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is actually strength. It takes strength to face reality as it is instead of hiding in fantasy about how it should be. It takes courage to let go of resistance and deal with things directly. And it takes wisdom to know that some battles can't be won, and the smartest thing you can do is stop fighting them. Lesson 4. Most of what you worry about never happens. I spent my 20s and 30s in a constant state of worry. What if this goes wrong? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? What if I succeed and can't handle it? What if? Then one day I actually looked back at all my worries from previous years. You know how many of them actually happened? Maybe 5%. And the ones that did happen, I handled them. I survived. I moved forward. We torture ourselves with imaginary scenarios that never materialize. We create detailed movies in our minds about all the terrible things that might occur, and we experience all the emotional pain as if they're actually happening. Your mind can't tell the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. So when you worry about something that hasn't happened, your body responds as if it's happening right now. What a waste of energy. What a waste of life. I remember lying awake at night worrying about a presentation I had to give at work. I played out every possible disaster scenario in my head. What if I forget what to say? What if the technology fails? What if people ask questions I can't answer? What if everyone thinks I'm incompetent? What if this ruins my career? I spent 3 nights barely sleeping, my stomach in knots, my mind racing through all these terrible possibilities. And you know what actually happened? The presentation went fine. Not perfect, but fine. Nobody died. My career didn't end. All that worry, all that lost sleep, all that stress, and it was completely pointless. The imaginary disaster I created in my mind never happened. But I experienced all the emotional pain as if it had. That's the thing about worry. It's not preparation. It's not planning. It's not productive thinking. It's just suffering in advance for things that probably won't even happen. And even when something does go wrong, it's rarely as bad as the version you created in your head. I used to worry about getting fired constantly. Every time my boss wanted to talk to me, I was convinced this was it. I'd spend the walk to their office imagining losing my job, not being able to pay my bills, losing my apartment, ending up broke and alone. My heart would be pounding, my palms would be sweating. And then I'd get to the office and they'd just want to ask me about a project or give me feedback on something minor. All that panic for nothing. But my body didn't know it was nothing. My body experienced a full stress response to a threat that only existed in my imagination. Your nervous system can't distinguish between a real tiger chasing you and an imaginary worry about losing your job. It responds the same way. Stress hormones flood your system, your heart rate increases, your muscles tense up, your digestion shuts down. All the biological responses designed to help you survive an immediate physical threat triggered by thoughts about hypothetical future problems. And we do this to ourselves constantly, multiple times a day, creating stress responses in our bodies over things that aren't even real. I worried about my health constantly. Every little ache or pain, I was convinced it was something serious. I'd spend hours researching symptoms online, convincing myself I had some terrible disease. I'd lie awake imagining doctor visits and diagnoses and worst-case scenarios. My anxiety about being sick was probably worse for my health than most actual minor illnesses. And 99% of the time, whatever I was worried about turned out to be nothing. A muscle strain, dehydration, normal aging. But I put myself through emotional hell over it. I worried about relationships. What if they leave me? What if they're cheating? What if they think I'm boring? What if I say the wrong thing? I created entire storylines in my head about relationships falling apart, and I experienced all the heartbreak before anything had even happened. Sometimes my worry actually damaged the relationship because I was so anxious and insecure. I was creating the exact outcome I was afraid of through my constant worrying. I worried about money. What if I lose my job? What if I can't pay my bills? What if I end up homeless? Even when I had savings in the bank and stable employment, I was worrying about financial disaster. The worry didn't make me more financially responsible. It just made me stressed and unable to enjoy the security I actually had. I worried about what people thought of me. What if they think I'm stupid? What if I embarrassed myself? What if they're talking about me behind my back? I would replay conversations over and over, analyzing every word, looking for signs that people didn't like me. I tortured myself with imaginary judgment that probably never existed. Here's what I finally realized after years of this exhausting pattern. Worry is a habit. It's something your brain learns to do, and the more you do it, the better your brain gets at it. You're literally training yourself to worry. Every time you engage with a worried thought, every time you play out those disaster scenarios, you're strengthening the worry pathway in your brain. You're teaching your mind that this is what we do when we face uncertainty. We worry. But just like worry is a habit you can learn, it's also a habit you can unlearn. You can train your brain to respond differently to uncertainty. When I started catching myself worrying, I would stop and ask myself a few simple questions. Has this happened yet? No. Is there anything I can do about it right now? If yes, do that thing. If no, then worrying about it is pointless. What's the evidence that this bad thing will actually happen? Usually none. I'm just making up scenarios based on fear, not facts. I started keeping a worry journal. Every time I had a major worry, I'd write it down. Then weeks or months later, I'd go back and check. Did this thing I was so worried about actually happen? Almost never. And when something did go wrong, it was never as catastrophic as I'd imagined. I handled it. I figured it out. I moved on. Seeing this pattern in black and white was powerful. It showed me just how unreliable my worried predictions were. My brain was terrible at forecasting disaster. It was overestimating threats constantly. Once I saw that clearly, it became easier to dismiss worried thoughts. Oh, there's my brain doing that thing again where it predicts disaster. Thanks for trying to keep me safe, brain, but I don't need to believe this story. I also realized that worry gives you the illusion of control. If I just think about all the things that could go wrong, maybe I can prevent them. If I worry enough, maybe I'm preparing myself. But that's not how it works. Worry doesn't prevent bad things from happening. It doesn't prepare you. If anything, it drains your energy and clouds your judgment so you're less equipped to handle real problems when they do arise. Action prepares you. Planning prepares you. Building skills prepares you. Worry just makes you suffer. The other thing about worry is that it keeps you locked in the future. You're never in the present moment because you're always mentally living in some imaginary future scenario. And since the present moment is the only place where life actually happens, worry literally causes you to miss your life. You miss the good things happening right now because you're too busy worrying about bad things that might happen later. When I stopped worrying so much, I didn't become careless or irresponsible. I still planned for the future. I still took precautions. I still thought about potential problems and how to address them. But I did it from a calm, rational place instead of from a place of anxiety and fear. And the difference is huge. When you're calm, you make better decisions. When you're anxious, your judgment is impaired. So not only does worry make you miserable, it actually makes you less capable of dealing with real problems. Think about how much time and energy you've spent worrying about things that never happened. Think about what you could have done with all that mental energy if you'd redirected it towards something productive or enjoyable. That's what really got to me. Not just that worry was unpleasant, but that it was stealing my life. All those hours, all those days, spent suffering over imaginary problems. Time I'll never get back. So now when I notice worry creeping in, I remember that statistic. 95% of what I worry about never happens. And that's enough to let it go. Lesson 5, you become what you practice. Every single day, you're practicing something. You're either practicing discipline or practicing laziness. You're either practicing gratitude or practicing complaint. You're either practicing courage or practicing avoidance. And whatever you practice becomes stronger. Your brain is constantly forming neural pathways based on repeated thoughts and actions. If you practice getting angry in traffic every single day, you're literally training your brain to default to anger. If you practice gratitude every morning, you're training your brain to look for things to be grateful for. This isn't motivational talk. This is neuroscience. You're not stuck being who you are right now. You're the result of everything you've practiced up until this point. And starting today, you can practice something different. Think about it like this. Every time you repeat a behavior or a thought pattern, you're carving a groove in your brain. The first time you do something, it's like walking through tall grass. It takes effort. It's awkward. It doesn't feel natural. But if you walk that same path every day, eventually you create a trail. Then that trail becomes easier and easier to follow. Eventually it becomes a path, then a road. And before you know it, that behavior or thought pattern is so automatic you don't even think about it anymore. That's how habits form. That's how you become who you are. You're the sum total of everything you've practiced, consciously or unconsciously, up until this moment. I used to be someone who complained constantly about the weather, about traffic, about work, about everything. And you know how I became that person? By practicing complaint every single day. Something inconvenient would happen, and I'd immediately voice my complaint. I'm training my brain to look for things to complain about. I'm strengthening that neural pathway. So naturally, my brain got really good at finding things to complain about. That became my default lens for viewing the world. Everything was something to complain about. And I wondered why I felt so negative all the time. I had literally trained myself to be negative through constant practice. Then I decided to try something different. I started practicing gratitude instead. Every morning, before I did anything else, I would think of 3 things I was grateful for. At first, it felt forced and awkward. My brain wasn't used to looking for good things. It was used to looking for problems. But I kept practicing, every single morning, 3 things. Could be big things, could be small things. I'm grateful for coffee. I'm grateful my body works. I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for my friend. I'm grateful I can see and hear and walk. Just 3 things every morning. And after a few weeks, something started to shift. My brain started looking for things to be grateful for automatically without me forcing it. I'd be going about my day, and I'd notice something good and feel appreciation. My brain had formed a new pathway. I had trained it to look for the positive, just like I had previously trained it to look for the negative. The same thing happened with discipline. I used to be someone who hit snooze 5 times every morning, who procrastinated on everything, who took the easy way out whenever possible. And again, I became that person through practice. Every time I hit snooze instead of getting up, I was practicing being someone who doesn't follow through on their intentions. Every time I chose comfort over discipline, I was strengthening that pattern. So of course I struggled with discipline. I had spent years practicing the opposite. But then I started small. I committed to getting up on the first alarm. That's it, just one behavior. And I practiced it every single day. The first week was brutal. My body and brain were screaming at me to hit snooze. That was the well-worn path. Getting up immediately was the new path through tall grass, but I kept practicing, and it got easier. And then I added another small discipline, making my bed every morning, then another, working out 3 times a week, then another, writing for 30 minutes every day. Each one felt difficult at first, but with practice, they all became automatic. I was literally rebuilding myself through consistent practice. Your personality isn't fixed. Your character isn't set in stone. You're not born a certain way and stuck being that way forever. You become what you repeatedly do. If you practice patience, you become patient. If you practice anger, you become angry. If you practice honesty, you become honest. If you practice avoidance, you become someone who avoids things. It's that simple and that powerful. I used to think I was just naturally anxious, that it was my personality, but anxiety was just something I had practiced so much it became automatic. Every time I catastrophized, every time I worried, every time I imagined worst-case scenarios, I was practicing anxiety. I was training my brain to default to anxious thinking. So when I started practicing different thoughts, calmer responses, rational analysis instead of catastrophizing, my anxiety decreased. Not because I changed my personality, but because I changed what I was practicing. The scary part is that most people practice unconsciously. They don't realize they're training their brains every single day. They just react habitually and wonder why they can't change. You get cut off in traffic and you automatically get angry. You're practicing anger. Someone criticizes you and you automatically get defensive. You're practicing defensiveness. Something goes wrong and you automatically blame others. You're practicing avoidance of responsibility. You face a challenge and you automatically look for the easy way out. You're practicing taking the path of least resistance. All of these reactions feel automatic because they are automatic. You've practiced them so many times they've become your default programming. But here's the good news. You can reprogram yourself. You can practice different responses. It won't feel natural at first. It will feel forced and uncomfortable. That's normal. That's just your brain wanting to take the familiar path instead of forging a new one. But if you keep practicing, the new way becomes the natural way. I started practicing pause. When something triggered an automatic reaction in me, I would pause before responding. Just a few seconds. That tiny pause gave me space to choose my response instead of just reacting. At first it felt weird. My brain wanted to react immediately like it always had, but I practiced that pause thousands of times, and now it's automatic. Something happens, and I have space before I respond. That one practice changed everything because it gave me the ability to practice other things. I could practice patience in that pause. I could practice thinking before speaking. I could practice choosing my attitude. The point is, you're practicing something right now. In this moment, you're either practicing the person you want to be or practicing the person you don't want to be. Every choice is practice. Every thought is practice. Every action is practice. And whatever you practice is what you become. So the question isn't whether you'll change. You're changing every day based on what you're practicing. The question is whether you'll change consciously, intentionally, in the direction you actually want to go, or whether you'll just keep practicing the same patterns unconsciously and wondering why nothing changes. Lesson 6. Death makes life meaningful. Nobody wants to think about death. It's uncomfortable, it's scary, it feels morbid. But here's what I learned. Remembering that you're going to die is the most clarifying thing you can do. When you truly internalize that your time is limited, that one day you won't wake up, that every moment is borrowed, suddenly all the stupid stuff falls away. Suddenly you stop caring about what random people think. Suddenly that argument seems petty. Suddenly you realize you've been postponing the life you actually want to live. I started each morning reminding myself that today could be my last day, and instead of making me depressed, it made me alive. It made me present. It made me stop wasting time on things that don't matter. We act like we have forever, and that delusion keeps us stuck in patterns that don't serve us. For most of my life, I lived as if I was immortal. Not consciously, obviously. I knew intellectually that I would die someday, but I didn't really feel it. I didn't live like it was true. I put things off. I held grudges. I stayed in situations that made me miserable because I thought I had plenty of time to make changes later. I worried about what people thought of me, about making mistakes, about not being perfect. I wasted time on things that didn't matter. I had important conversations I kept postponing. I had dreams I kept putting off until someday. And someday felt so far away that it might as well have been never. Then someone close to me died suddenly. No warning, no long illness, just here one day and gone the next. And it shook me to my core, because if it could happen to them without warning, it could happen to me. It could happen to anyone. We're all walking around acting like we have guaranteed tomorrows, but we don't. This could be it. Today could be your last day. And that's not meant to be depressing, it's meant to wake you up. After that loss, I started a morning practice. Before I got out of bed, I would lie there for a minute and remind myself that I'm going to die, that this body will stop working someday, that I have a limited number of days, and I just used one of them. I don't know how many I have left. Could be 50 years, could be 50 days, could be today. And with that awareness, I would ask myself, how do I want to spend today? If this was my last day, would I waste it being angry about something that won't matter in a week? Would I spend it scrolling mindlessly on my phone? Would I avoid that difficult conversation I need to have? Would I hold on to that grudge? Would I stay silent when I have something to say? Would I play it safe and small when I could be living fully? The answer was always no. When you remember you're going to die, your priorities become crystal clear. All the trivial nonsense falls away and you see what actually matters. Relationships matter, connection matters, love matters, being present matters, doing meaningful work matters, growing as a person matters, experiencing life fully matters. Everything else is just noise. But we forget this. We get caught up in the noise. We stress about things that won't matter at all when we're on our deathbed. We hold grudges against people over petty stuff. We avoid risks because we're afraid of looking foolish. We stay quiet when we should speak up. We stay in jobs we hate. We postpone joy. We wait for the right time. We act like we have unlimited time to get our lives together, to chase our dreams, to become who we want to be. And then we wake up at 60 or 70 or 80 and realize we wasted so much time on things that didn't matter. I started asking myself a simple question about everything. If I knew I was going to die in 6 months, would this matter? Would I care about this argument? Would I stress about this small mistake? Would I worry about what this random person thinks of me? Would I spend time on this activity? Would I stay in this situation? Usually the answer was no. And if it wouldn't matter when facing death, why does it matter now? Why am I giving it my energy and attention? That question became a filter for everything in my life. Someone cuts me off in traffic and I start to get angry. Then I remember I'm going to die and this moment of anger is costing me one of my limited moments of life. Is it worth it? No. Let it go. Someone posts something online that annoys me and I want to argue. Then I remember I have limited time on this earth. Do I want to spend it arguing with strangers on the internet? No. Move on. I'm in a job that makes me miserable, but it's comfortable and safe. Then I remember I could die tomorrow. Do I want to spend my remaining time being miserable just because it's safe? No. Make a change. Understanding death didn't make me reckless or depressed. It made me intentional. It made me ask better questions. It made me live more deliberately. I stopped postponing things. That trip I wanted to take, book it now. That person I wanted to reach out to, call them today. That skill I wanted to learn, start learning it this week. That relationship that's not working, address it now or end it. That dream I've been putting off, begin today. Because I don't know how much time I have. None of us do. And the idea that we'll get to it later is a comfortable lie we tell ourselves. Later might not come. This might be all you get. Are you living like it? Are you spending your days on things that matter to you? Are you being the person you want to be? Are you saying the things you need to say? Are you taking the chances you want to take? Most people avoid thinking about death because it's uncomfortable, because it forces you to confront the fact that time is running out, that you can't put things off forever, that you need to make choices and changes now, not someday. But that discomfort is actually a gift. It's a wake-up call. It's your mortality tapping you on the shoulder saying, pay attention, this matters, you don't have forever. When you embrace that instead of avoiding it, everything changes. You become more present. When you know time is limited, you stop taking moments for granted. You actually notice the sunrise. You actually listen when someone's talking to you. You actually taste your food. You're here, now, fully experiencing life instead of being lost in thoughts about the past or future. You become more grateful. When you know this could all end at any moment, suddenly everything feels like a gift. Your health, your relationships, your ability to see and hear and move. Another day, another breath. Things you used to take for granted become precious. You become more courageous. When you remember you're going to die anyway, a lot of fears lose their power. Fear of failure? You're going to die, might as well try. Fear of judgment? You're going to die, their opinions don't matter. Fear of change? You're going to die, staying stuck is worse. Knowing your time is limited makes you braver because you realize the real risk is not living fully while you have the chance. You become more authentic. When you remember life is short, you stop pretending to be someone you're not. You stop performing for others. You stop hiding parts of yourself. What's the point? You're going to die. You might as well be yourself while you're here. You let go of pettiness, grudges, resentments, arguments over nothing. When you remember everyone involved is going to die, including you, it all seems so pointless. You forgive more easily. You let things go. You focus on what actually matters in relationships instead of keeping score over trivial stuff. Death is the great clarifier. It shows you what matters and what doesn't. And when you live with that clarity, when you make choices based on your mortality instead of pretending you're immortal, you actually start living, really living. Not just existing, not just going through the motions, but being fully alive in each moment because you know moments are all you have. Lesson 7. Comfort is overrated and often harmful. We're obsessed with comfort. We want comfortable jobs, comfortable relationships, comfortable lives. But here's the truth. Growth happens outside comfort zones. Strength comes from resistance. Character develops through challenge. I spent years choosing the easy path, avoiding difficult conversations, staying in situations that felt safe but kept me small. And every single time I chose comfort over growth, I paid for it later. The bill always comes due. When you avoid discomfort, you don't eliminate it, you just postpone it and make it worse. That difficult conversation you're avoiding, it gets harder the longer you wait. That challenge you're running from, it grows bigger in your mind. Embracing discomfort, actively seeking it out, became one of the most powerful decisions I ever made. Cold showers, difficult workouts, hard conversations, facing fears, these things build the person you want to become. Lesson 8. You can't control people, so stop trying. This might be the hardest lesson on this list. Other people are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to think what they think. They're going to say what they say. And you trying to control them is not only impossible, it damages your relationships and exhausts you. I used to get so frustrated when people didn't see things my way. Why can't they understand? Why won't they change? Why do they keep doing that thing that bothers me? Because they're separate human beings with their own minds, their own experiences, their own free will. The only person you can change is yourself. The only behavior you can control is your own. When you truly accept this, relationships become easier. You stop trying to force people to be different. You either accept them as they are or you make a decision about whether you want them in your life. But you stop this exhausting middle ground of trying to change them. Lesson 9. Your morning sets the tone for your entire day. This is the secret that actually rewires your mind. Most people wake up and immediately check their phone. They flood their brain with other people's problems, other people's opinions, other people's emergencies. Then they wonder why they feel reactive and anxious all day. Your morning is sacred. It's when your mind is most impressionable. It's when you have the chance to set your internal state before the world makes demands on you. I started waking up and spending the first hour on myself, not checking messages, not scrolling, just focusing inward. I think about what's important to me. I remind myself of what I control. I visualize how I want to show up today. I practice gratitude for what I have. This single change had more impact than anything else I've tried. Because when you start your day centered and intentional, you carry that energy into everything you do. You're not reacting to life, you're responding from a place of clarity. Lesson 10. Judging others is a mirror of judging yourself. Pay attention to what you criticize in other people. I guarantee it's something you judge yourself for. When I was harshly critical of people who were out of shape, it was because I was disappointed in my own fitness. When I judged people for being emotional, it was because I was suppressing my own feelings. What you can't accept in others is usually what you can't accept in yourself. And here's the thing, judging others doesn't make you better, it makes you bitter. It separates you from people. It creates walls instead of bridges. When I started practicing less judgment, both of myself and others, life got lighter. I had more compassion. I had more connection. I had more peace. People are doing the best they can with what they know and what they've experienced, just like you are. Lesson 11. Happiness is not a destination, it's a practice. This is the biggest lie we're sold. That happiness is something you achieve, that once you get there, you stay there. So we chase goals thinking they'll make us happy, and we achieve them and feel good for a moment, then we're back to baseline, looking for the next thing to chase. Happiness isn't something you find or achieve. It's something you practice. It's a skill. It's a choice you make moment by moment. You practice it by being present, by appreciating what you have right now, instead of constantly looking forward to what you don't have. By finding meaning in ordinary moments, by connecting with people, by contributing to something beyond yourself. I wasted so many years thinking I'd be happy when certain conditions were met. When I finally have this, when I finally accomplish that, and I missed the life that was happening right in front of me. Here's what all of these lessons have in common. They're all about internal work. They're all about taking responsibility for your inner world. And that's what most people never do. They spend their entire lives trying to rearrange external circumstances to feel better internally. But it doesn't work that way. You can have everything and feel empty, or you can have very little and feel fulfilled. The difference is entirely in your mind. The ancient thinkers understood this thousands of years ago. They didn't have therapy or self-help books or podcasts, but they figured out something that modern society keeps forgetting, that peace comes from within, that strength is mental before it's physical, that wisdom is more valuable than any material possession. These aren't new ideas, but they're timeless because they're true, and every generation has to relearn them. The real transformation happens when you stop looking outside yourself for answers, when you stop blaming circumstances or people or bad luck for how you feel, when you take complete ownership of your mind, your responses, your choices. That's when everything changes. Not because your life suddenly becomes easy, but because you become someone who can handle whatever comes. You develop what ancient wisdom traditions called an inner citadel, a place inside you that remains calm regardless of external chaos. Look, I'm not going to pretend that understanding these lessons means you'll never struggle again. You will. Life is hard. People will disappoint you. Things won't go according to plan. You'll face loss and pain and uncertainty. But you'll face all of that differently. You'll have tools, you'll have perspective, you'll have the knowledge that while you can't control events, you absolutely can control your responses. And that makes all the difference. These 11 lessons took me 30 years to learn because nobody taught me this stuff. I had to figure it out through trial and error, through pain and failure, through countless mistakes. But you don't have to take 30 years. You can start applying this wisdom today, right now, this morning. You can wake up tomorrow and consciously choose how you're going to show up. You can practice controlling your responses instead of being controlled by circumstances. You can work on your thoughts instead of being ruled by them. You can embrace discomfort instead of running from it. You can accept reality instead of fighting it. You can remember death to appreciate life. This isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming conscious. It's about moving from autopilot to intentional living. And the beautiful thing is, once you start seeing things this way, you can't unsee it. Once you understand these principles, they start showing up everywhere in your life. You catch yourself reacting unconsciously and you pause. You notice negative thought patterns and you question them. You feel yourself resisting reality and you choose acceptance. Small shifts that compound over time into massive transformation. Your mind is the most powerful tool you have, but most people never learn how to use it properly. They let it run wild, creating stories and judgments and worries that make life harder than it needs to be. These 11 lessons are about taking back control, about rewiring your mental patterns, about building a mind that serves you instead of sabotaging you. And it all starts with how you begin your day. That morning practice I mentioned, that's your daily reset. That's your chance to set the tone before the world gets loud. That's when you remind yourself of what matters and who you want to be. Do that consistently and watch how everything else falls into place. If this resonated with you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.